I travel a lot for work, regional sales, always on the road. That night I was driving through a small town in rural Pennsylvania. It was late, around 10:30 p.m., and I hadn't eaten all day. I pulled off the highway and found myself in a town so quiet it felt like time had paused there. The only place still open was a small bar with no sign, just a flickering red neon light that said "Open" in one window. No music spilling out, no noise, just silence and dim amber lighting. I hesitated. Something about the place felt old, not just in the physical sense, but like it belonged to another time. But I was starving, and something about the stillness drew me in. Inside, it was dim and smoky. The walls were wood-paneled and yellowed with age. The bar was mostly empty, except for 3 other patrons. A man in a tan overcoat staring into a shot glass, a middle-aged woman humming quietly in the corner, and the bartender. A tall man with gray slicked-back hair, wearing a perfectly clean white shirt and black suspenders. He didn't say a word when I entered, just nodded once. I sat down at the bar and asked if they had a menu. "No menu," he replied, his voice deep and strangely calm. "Just the usual." I didn't even ask what that meant. I said sure. He poured me a glass of something dark. Whiskey, I assumed. It had a bitter, earthy flavor. Not bad, just different. Then he leaned forward and asked, "What brings you in tonight, traveler?" I told him I was passing through. "Looking for food? Maybe a drink?" He nodded like he'd heard that 1,000 times. Then he asked something strange. "Anyone know you're here?" It felt like a casual question, but the room went still. Even the woman in the corner stopped humming. I laughed nervously. "Not really. I guess not." The man in the tan coat turned slightly and muttered, "You shouldn't have said that." I turned to him. "Excuse me?" He just shook his head and downed his drink. The bartender refilled my glass without asking. "Try not to lie," he said. "This place doesn't take well to liars." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" That's when the mirror behind the bar caught my eye. I hadn't noticed it before. It was massive, spanning the entire back wall. But the weird thing was, my reflection wasn't right. The bar, the bottles, everything looked the same. But in the mirror, there were no other patrons, just me. I looked back at the room. The man, the woman, they were still sitting there. I looked back at the mirror. Gone. Only the bartender remained. I stood up, dizzy. "What is this place?" He looked at me with something close to sympathy. "A place between places. You came looking for something. But not everyone leaves here."
I didn't wait for more. I turned and bolted for the door. The knob wouldn't turn. Behind me, the bar had changed. The wood paneling was rotting, the air thick with mold. The lights flickered. The bartender was still there, but his skin now looked ashen, stretched too tightly over his bones. "You said no one knew you were here," he said, voice echoing. "Then how did you get here?" I screamed. I rammed the door with my shoulder again and again until it finally burst open. And I stumbled out into the parking lot. But when I turned back to look at the bar, there was nothing there. Just an empty lot overgrown with weeds. No sign, no red neon, nothing. I jumped in my car and drove straight until daylight. Later, I tried finding the town again, Google Maps, real maps. I even asked locals in nearby cities, but every road I took either looped me back to the highway or ended in dead ends. It's like that town, like that bar, never existed. But I know what I saw, and I still have that weird, bitter smell in the back of my throat sometimes, like the whiskey I drank that night. So if you ever find yourself alone on the road and you see a bar with no name, go in. And if you do, don't ever say no one knows you're there.
It was a Friday night in early winter, and I'd just gone through a breakup. I wasn't in the mood for a loud club or a crowded brewery. I wanted something quiet. I live just outside Portland, Oregon, and a friend once told me about this hidden bar tucked away in the old industrial district. Said it had a weird vibe, but incredible drinks and hardly any people. That sounded perfect. I found the place down a narrow, cracked alleyway between two abandoned factories. No signs, just a heavy black door with a knocker shaped like a crow. I almost turned back, but then I heard music, soft jazz, floating through the bricks like smoke. I opened the door. Inside it was warm, cozy. Velvet booths, dim lighting, soft saxophone playing from a corner speaker. It was practically empty except for a bartender wiping down the bar and a woman sitting alone in the far right booth, dressed entirely in red. I sat at the bar and ordered an old-fashioned. The drink was phenomenal, smooth, perfectly balanced. The bartender, a pale guy with silver rings on every finger, didn't say much, but he smiled politely. I couldn't help noticing the woman again. She wasn't just in red, she was glowing. Not literally, but the light seemed to bend around her. Her dress shimmered, her lipstick matched, and her black hair framed her face like something out of a noir film. He caught me looking and smiled. I looked away, but a minute later, she was standing beside me. "Come sit with me," she said. He hesitated, but something about her tone. It wasn't flirtation, it was more like a command. We slid into the booth and she offered me another drink. The bartender brought it over without being asked. We talked. Her name was Lillian. She had a soft, old-fashioned way of speaking, like someone from the 1940s. She asked me about my heartbreak, and I opened up more than I ever had to a stranger. Her eyes were so intense, like she was absorbing my pain and wearing it like a cloak. After maybe 20 minutes, I started to feel heavy. Not drunk, just tired, sluggish. The air felt thick. I blinked and realized the bar was empty. The bartender was gone. So was the music. Only she remained. I tried to stand up, but she grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were ice cold. "Stay a little longer," she whispered. "Just one more drink." Her voice echoed, even though she was right in front of me. Then I looked at her face again. It had changed. Her eyes were now completely black, her mouth too wide, her skin pale as bone. Her red dress looked soaked, like it had just come out of a river. I yanked my arm free and stumbled backward. The bar was different now. Dusty, cracked, falling apart. The booths torn, the walls moldy. The entrance was gone. I spun in circles, panic surging through my chest.
"I like the broken ones," she said behind me, voice distorted. "They're easy to keep." I screamed. I ran for where I thought the door had been and slammed into the wall. I beat on it, kicked it, until finally it gave way. Fell onto the cold alley pavement outside. When I turned back, the door was gone. The brick wall was solid.
There was no bar.
Just an alley in silence. I still don't know if that place was real, if she was a ghost, a demon, or something older. But sometimes, especially when I'm lonely, I hear her whisper again. Just one more drink, and I run.
I used to be a bartender myself. 10 years of slinging drinks in hole-in-the-wall pubs and downtown dives. You get used to weird customers, creepy drunks, the occasional fight. But this story, it happened after I left that life behind. I was visiting New Orleans for a friend's bachelor party. After the main group went back to the hotel, I decided to wander a bit on my own. Bourbon Street was wild as always, but I wanted something off the map, authentic. I ended up on a quiet side street where I found an old bar called Hollow House. The sign was hand-painted, half-faded. There was something about it, like it didn't want to be found. But I went in anyway. It was small, with maybe 5 tables and a short counter. The place smelled like damp wood and old perfume. There was one other patron, an older man hunched over a beer, muttering to himself. The bartender was a woman in her 60s with long gray hair tied back in a braid. "What can I get you?" she asked. "Whiskey," I replied. She poured me a glass and slid it over. It tasted strange, earthy, like it had been aged in the ground, not in a barrel. I asked her what it was. "Only served here," she said. "Last call special." I took a few more sips. It hit hard, stronger than anything I'd ever had. I blinked, and suddenly the lighting changed, like someone dimmed the world around me. The bartender was still there, but the bar had shifted. The walls looked older. There were now photographs everywhere. Black and white portraits of people, hundreds of them, all around the room. I hadn't seen them when I came in. The old man in the corner lifted his head. "You're not supposed to drink the last coal." He sounded angry, or afraid, I couldn't tell which. "Well, not?" I asked. He didn't answer. The bartender leaned in. "Tell me, what are you running from?" I blinked. "What?" "Everyone who finds this place is running from something. A regret, a secret, a ghost of their own making." My stomach turned cold. "I'm not running," I said. She smiled sadly. "Then you're lying to yourself." Suddenly, I heard whispers, dozens of voices in the walls. Then I realized the photographs weren't just random strangers. They were people who had been in the bar.
Each picture had the same strange drink beside it. The bartender placed a Polaroid camera on the bar. I knocked it away. "I'm leaving," I said, heart racing. "You can," but I ran. The door wasn't locked. It never was. But the second I stepped outside, everything behind me vanished. The building, the sign, the lights. I asked locals about the Hollow House. No one had heard of it. But a few months later, back home, I was flipping through a box of old photos at an antique store and found a black and white picture of me sitting in that bar, holding that glass. No one can explain how it got there, but I haven't had a drink since. And I never, ever stay out for last call.
And if those stories left your spine tingling and your curiosity burning, you're not alone. Bars are meant to be places of escape, laughter, and connection, but sometimes they serve something far darker than drinks. Maybe you've walked into a place that felt wrong. Maybe you've met someone across a smoky room whose smile lingered far too long. Or maybe you've seen a bar once, then never found it again, like it vanished from the world just as fast as it appeared. If you've ever had a chilling encounter, an unexplainable moment, or a real-life horror story of your own, whether at a bar or somewhere just as eerie, I want to hear it. Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be featured in a future episode. And if you enjoyed these bone-chilling tales, don't forget to like the video to show your support. Subscribe so you never miss a nightmarish tale, and share this with a friend who's brave enough to hear the truth lurking in our everyday world. After all, the scariest stories are the ones that actually happen, and could happen again. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. And next time someone offers you a drink in a bar you've never seen before, maybe just say no.